The time is just gone 9 minutes past 8 as we kick off this morning, taking a look at the coal debate in South Africa. Now, we've seen it in the past where President Cyril Ramaphosa has pledged to meet the nation's net zero carbon emission target. And despite a push to keep our coal fired power plants up and running, we've heard in May where President Cyril Ramaphosa confirmed that the South African government will be slowing down its planned decommissioning of coal-fired power stations. And the latest is his advisors have been said that South Africa must get rid of coal. We need to use minimal gas. And this is why we are talking with the president of Transform RFA and also energy expert, Crown Prince Adil Nchabeleng. Crown Prince Adil, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Juma Mubarak to you and welcome, my brother.
Wa alaikum salam and Juma Mubarak, and thank you so much.
Yes, this whole coal debate. Now, you and I have had so many discussions regarding
Yep.
the energy problems in South Africa, and this big coal debate is still taking place against the background of, once again, a dire situation as far as energy supply goes in this country.
Yeah, we're sitting with a critical situation with regards to our energy sovereignty in South Africa. And given the fact that currently ESCOM has been struggling with securing proper electricity to provide for its citizens. So we are sitting on a serious situation. And I think there's been a literally pullback, not a pushback in a way, but a pullback, whereby both presidents have actually agreed, I mean, from the deputy president to the state president, agreeing that it will not be wise at this stage to actually decommission the entire coal fleet as well as the coal opportunity that we have in South Africa. And the focus will be to extend the lifespan of the power plants. Of we're using coal in order to resolve our energy crisis in South Africa. So it's not been an easy process. There's been a lot of voices that came into the discussion to say this is unacceptable, whereby we are in a crisis and South Africa is busy proposing internationally moving away from coal.
Yes. Now, also, looking at the country, and we know at this point in time we are starved of energy. And in terms of the goals that we have actually set ourselves, and looking at this is becoming quite a moving target because we see every time the president making a statement, we see something different. We've seen, in the past, we set certain deadlines and we set certain timetables. Now we are talking about delaying the timetable for shutting down the coal-fired power stations. At the end of the day, unless unless we solve our problems in this country, very little is actually going to happen, Adil.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody around the world, but Ashraf, has been moving away from decommissioning their plants, except for South Africa, which has actually shut down almost over 19,000 megawatts worth of coal-based fleet and power stations, which is in units, power station units at the stage. So it doesn't make sense at the level of our crisis to be really pestering over how we can actually destroy our own energy and energy sovereignty on the basis of backing something that nobody currently believes in. I mean, the war in Ukraine showed the hypocrisy of Europe, that when it suits their interest, they would not care a damn about anything except to look after their personal interests. The same countries that were speaking big and bold about how we should all migrate away from coal, use natural gas or use solar and wind, are today the same countries that have now refired back their coal power stations. And they are saying that the reason they're doing it is the temporary reason for the next 5 to 10 years, on the basis that they wanted to secure security for their supply because they don't have electricity as well as the gas from Russia. So, it's been a really interesting debate to say that, you know, God says, I have a plan, and the others have their own plan. But who's the best planner of all? In this case, we can see that the emerging plan is in the interest of the poor and the majority of the world, who depend on this natural resource that God has given. Just like we're talking about the oil, we're talking about the natural resources that have been endowed, that if used properly, can alleviate poverty, create jobs, create opportunities, grow economies, and ensure that people live a good life so that they can constantly remember their creator.
Definitely. In fact, Adil, you make a very, very good point. Wa makar Allah, wallahu khairul makirin. Allah is obviously the best of planners. But just looking at South Africa, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around this, Adil, why the pressure on South Africa in particular to move away from coal?
The pressure placed on South Africa as the basis that the European countries are highly hypocritical. They want South Africa to lose its national sovereignty of coal-based, almost free energy. Because if you remember the history of coal, we used to not even pay for it, and as a result, it gave us economic might. But they want to destroy that base of South Africa's ability to create free, cheap electricity to develop its people, and they want us to get into the World Bank arrangement of debt in terms of borrowing from the International Monetary Fund so that we can then pay interest on the future IPPs that we are buying right now. Because all of the current IPPs that South Africa is purchasing are all based on interest contracts. And they are erroneous contracts. They are not nice contracts. It states very clearly that if you default on those contracts, you lose the ability to even be a sovereign country. Some countries who you're indebted to can come in and take over your state and sovereignty, and in retrospect, literally liquidate your public assets, your ports, your key infrastructure that actually gives you sovereignty and a statehood. So people don't understand the depth of this problem. They think it's just about electricity. It's not. It's more than the electricity. They want South Africa to go into a debt contract. That debt contract will then produce this independent power producers who are actually from the international banks and markets. And that's why they were having this problem. Cheap electricity is available in South Africa. Coal is abundant. We can produce gas out of it. We can produce steel out of it. We can produce cement out of it. We can produce coking coal out of it. We can produce synthetic oils as well as lubricants and all of that, including the crude oil. But, the leadership has been so completely misled that they don't know anything about anything. And all that they do is to listen to these international interests that have been funding them as well, in order to move away from coal. So it's really a Tagalic agenda in a way.
Well, definitely, Adil. In fact, and we are in a debt situation already. I mean, our debt service costs are extremely high as a country. But the key issue here is: do we have the capacity to deal with this? Do we have the capacity as a government, as President Cyril Ramaphosa, to actually stand up to all this that is playing out the agenda and the pressure that is being put on the country?
Currently, we do, because at least there's been a pullback. The president has made a concern that, listen, we can't be decommissioning power plants, and we can't move away from coal. And unfortunately, the economics are in such a way that if we do this thing so hastily, the way they have been proposing it, it's going to collapse everything. And the President Cyril Ramaphosa's legacy will be the worst president ever if he pursue this agenda of decommissioning power plants in South Africa. You've already seen it with the bouts of load shedding, blackouts that we are currently experiencing, the entire almost breaking down of our energy system, where you have over 12 hours without electricity, which means half of your day, you don't have any power. So this is not sustainable on a long-term basis. ESCOM has made a realization to say, apart from the other energy action plans, they are going to go back to ensuring that they now refurbish, fix, as well as bring back these power stations that have been out of operation. Because the problem is it's not to do with whether coal should be used or not. It's the power stations that have been actually decommissioned. Some of them have been literally shut down on the call that we must move away from coal.
Yes, and also, when one looks at some of the big economies around the world, if you look at China, you look at India, who have refused to actually move away from coal, and we see what is happening in those countries. We see the economic growth, and we see how these countries have actually moved forward, Adil.
Absolutely. I mean, these countries are some of the developed in the world as we speak, right? And they are using what China, for instance, is using 1 million megawatts of electricity. 1 million megawatts of electricity coming out of coal. And yet, and they're building about what? I mean, the last I checked, they had about almost another 100, if I'm not wrong, power stations that have been built this year alone on coal. And they are continuing that whole building program. They are not slowing down. Instead, they are actually adding up and actually working harder to making sure that they have more coal fleet. They are building brand new nuclear fleet, and they are looking at the hydro power stations. The rest, in terms of their solar and wind, is because of they have excess production in China of solar. So, in order to make sure that they can get their excess production absorbed, they are using it on the basis of making sure that they can subsidize their industries, and they are giving it away in China for installation because they know it's an intermittent, it's limited, it's got capacity challenges and everything, and it cannot be used for a national grid. And given the complexity of China itself, it's a highly complex region with mountains, huge barriers in terms of access to anything. And they need baseload power station, which is your coal and your nuclear and the hydro. And they've been successful in that sense. We're talking 1 million megawatts. South Africa is sitting at a 50,000 megawatts. We are not even a drop in the basis of what's happening. Any other example in the world, it is overshadowed by what China is doing.
Yes, Adil, we're going to have to leave it at that. As always, we do appreciate you taking time out and talking to us here on Salam Media. Have yourself a wonderful Jummah ahead, inshallah, and all the best to you, my brother. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Juma Mubarak, wa alaikum salam.
Adil Nchabeleng, the president of Transform RSA and energy expert, with us this morning as Cyril Ramaphosa. The pressure is on him to ditch coal, and under the circumstances where this nation, where this country is starved of electricity, is it the right move? Definitely not, because there are many other issues, there are many other agendas, external forces that are playing out, putting pressure for their own benefit. So that South Africa can actually move away from coal. But right now, it is not an option. The time is just gone, 22 minutes past 8. We come back. We'll be focusing on the BRICS foreign ministers meeting in Cape Town, outcome of day one.